Queen Maxima, the star of the Dutch monarchy. A newcomer to the royal family. As UN Special Advocate, she tirelessly travels the world and meets with big players in world politics, combining duties with matters close to her heart. How does she reconcile the two? Bangladesh, July 2019. A country in Southeast Asia affected by extreme poverty and difficult living conditions. In the middle of monsoon season at 40 degrees with 90% humidity, Queen Maxima flies to the Gulf of Bengal as UN Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development.
As I said to you, I'm not sure she thinks about the tropical summer. She thinks about the job she's got to do. I think that she's a good example of making the sacrifices of someone in that office who could have a much nicer life and just be a queen. She's sort of a watch that just goes on ticking until she gets the job done.
Maxima wants to give as many people as possible access to financial services, including insurance and loans, so that ideally they can start their own small businesses.
So the issue is, how can we actually foster all the work to really be able to make this a reality of actually having financial inclusion in the future? There's a couple of things we're going to be discussing in the coming days, and I would like to have your views on it.
The last time she was in Bangladesh was in 2015. The UN Special Advocate now wants an update on what has happened since. The former banker keeps meticulous records and is very well informed, but there's still a lot to do, especially here.
The next level will be to focus a little bit more on the gender side, getting a lot more on the connectivity side of the women, but also to get a payment system that's interoperable, for example, or to get an ID system that is actually good for all the private sector players to have access to, so that we can actually include all of the population into the economic system.
The fact that micro-entrepreneur Jana Islam can run a tailor shop with several employees is largely thanks to the Queen's dedicated work. These two have known each other for 4 years.
But you paid all your credits, so you have no credits anymore, eh? Good job.
After her husband fell ill, Jana's family got into serious financial difficulties.
The first time I met her, she already had several credits and possibilities to actually save. And with that, she had been able to set up a business of textile with 8 employees back then in 2015. Now I come back 4 years later. She has 16 employees. She's been able to save. She said she had bought a house. She's been able to pay the education for her extended family. And that has made her sort of quite an empowered woman. And I'm so happy to see the effect.
Leading politicians, bankers and entrepreneurs follow her advice.
She believes in results in people's lives, and that drives her. So I think she's very focused, very passionate about what she does, and it's exciting because she's empowering women. She's bringing people into a space that they have been excluded for a long time, and that's empowerment and finance.
Whether in the slums of Bangladesh or with Queen Elizabeth in Windsor Castle, Maxima knows what's expected of her. When Willem-Alexander is invested into the Order of the Garter, she respectfully hangs back. After all, it is her husband who is receiving the honour. At other times, she's in pride of place, like here beside the Queen at the Royal Ascot horse races. All eyes are always on her. Maxima has brought glamour to the Dutch royal family, and the King is well aware of just how precious she is.
She means everything to me, my happiness at home, my children. I owe everything to her. She's my friend and my partner. She's a very special woman. I'm so happy that I met her and that she chose to share her life with me.
They may be very close, But it's only the king who is the undisputed head of state in the Netherlands. The role of the monarch is set out in great detail in the constitution. But what about the duties and responsibilities of his wife, the queen?
Queens by marriage are not even mentioned in the Dutch constitution. Not a word is written about them. From a constitutional point of view, Maxima is nothing at all. The constitution only refers to the head of state, the king.
So who decides what Maxima is allowed to do?
Ja, dat is eigenlijk meer...
It's sort of organised off the record, basically. That might sound a bit strange, but there are unspoken agreements.
Afspraken die stilzwijgend plaatsvinden.
Like Willem-Alexander, Maxima is also a member of the Council of State, a body which advises the government. But does Maxima really have a say?
We shouldn't place too much importance on that role. Members of the royal family are in that council, but they have no voting rights. Maxima is allowed to listen and be informed, but not make decisions.
She can't express political opinions either. The Queen's job description includes one thing above all else: representing and supporting her husband in his duties.
En het goede vind ik van koningin Maxima...
The good thing about Queen Maxima is that she is always aware of her position as the king's wife, and the fact that the king is the head of state and therefore has to play a very prominent role. She does a very good job of respecting
Daar
that.
houdt ze enorm goed rekening mee.
Protocol dictates who comes in first.
Maar ik vind wel, nu ze koningin is, dat ze, als ze samen op pad zijn...
Since she became the queen, she's literally been taking a step back whenever they're representing the country abroad. You also see her looking at the king very intently whenever he makes a speech. It's not about me, it's about my husband. I think that's very clever of her.
Dat vind ik wel heel knap van haar.
Every Monday, the king and queen meet with their team of advisors. Appointments are made, projects and journeys discussed. The team makes suggestions, and the royal couple also give their own ideas. Ever since she became crown princess, Maxima has had a permanent advisor at her side, an extremely experienced business administrator and manager.
Her
personal advisor, Pin Zaya, has been very important to Maxima from the very beginning. All of Maxima's appointments, everything she does, it all goes through her. She's very well connected. She's a secret weapon, really, and unlike other people, you never see her. She's invisible, but at the same time, she's everywhere.
Die andere schon, aber die ist überall dabei.
One of Maxima's ladies-in-waiting is usually by her side. It's an honorary role, unpaid, but with clear responsibilities.
Es kommen sehr viele
The royal couple always receives a lot of requests and invitations. Maxima, in particular, receives lots and lots. They say you have to plan at least half a year ahead. The ladies-in-waiting take a look at all the different requests and do the research and the preparations. And then they make recommendations. So the ladies-in-waiting have a sort of intermediary role.
The king's wife is expected to do more than just smile and shake hands. She has to make herself useful too. The people of the Netherlands expect nothing less.
The Queen told me that she loves the fact that there is no typical working day for her. She has her day-to-day duties, but then she also has a lot of business trips and state visits too. Those days are, of course, completely different to the ones where she's inaugurating a hospital or visiting an institution that she's the patron of. And then other days, she has a lot of internal meetings.
In 2013, Willem-Alexander becomes king, the first man on the throne in over 100 years, and Maxima becomes queen.
Het was een buitengewone dag.
It was an extraordinary day. It was a very special, once-in-a-lifetime experience. It was incredibly emotional. Maxima was very regal that day. She looked beautiful.
Zag er prachtig uit.
Amsterdam in party mode. The Dutch give their new king and queen a warm welcome. A royal duty has already been fulfilled by Maxima to secure the future of the monarchy. They have 3 daughters, Amalia, followed by Ariana and Alexia. Despite all her royal duties, Maxima never loses sight of her children's upbringing. She wants her daughters to have a childhood that is as normal as possible.
I know they do a lot of things together. There's work time, and then there's family time. The weekends are important, they're sacred, and so are the holidays.
Even queens are allowed to go on holiday. At a press conference in the summer, they announce familiar-sounding plans.
The holidays are great because I don't have to plan every moment of my day from morning till night. I do that enough the rest of the year. We want to spend as much time as possible with the children, doing different things and staying active.
Swimming, reading, all the things I never usually have time for, playing games and laughing, and having a siesta every now and then.
January 2019, they move into the newly decorated Huis ten Bosch Palace. The children are now nearer their school, a public high school. But how normal can school life ever be for the princesses?
The bodyguards, for example, have instructions that if they ever get into mischief at school, they shouldn't go and tell Maxima or Willem-Alexander about it. They don't want to hear it. Their daughters should be allowed to make mistakes. Willem-Alexander says that's how he grew up too. On the other hand, of course, you shouldn't be under any illusions. I mean, the eldest, she already knew back in kindergarten that she would one day be head of state. There's no way that she can ever have a truly normal childhood.
Only a few insiders know what happens behind the palace walls.
They're guarded at all times, but they don't notice it, even when they're doing normal things at the weekend.
Like working from the new home, Maxima's job often doesn't differ from that of a manager.
She usually works for the United Nations in the evenings and has video conferences with Washington and New York. That works out because of the big time difference.
This is also part of the job, the compulsory photo shoots for the press and public, but they're only twice a year. In February, when they're skiing in Austria, and back home in July before the summer holidays. Maxima makes sure that Amalia, the heir to the throne, slowly gets used to the spotlight. Does her daughter enjoy her role as crown princess?
I still haven't come to terms with the fact that this is really my life, but I know I'm very lucky.
Is it exciting?
Sometimes.
Oh, come on.
Sometimes, I said sometimes.
If anything happens to Willem-Alexander, the Queen will take his place until Crown Princess Amalia is of legal age. That was Parliament's unanimous decision. Once a year, the Crown and the public celebrate the King's birthday, on April the 27th, in a different place each year. And she is always in the limelight.
She's a born performer. She loves the camera and appearing in public. In that respect, she's a step ahead of her husband.
The commoner's daughter is a natural when mingling with the public. The royal couple is incredibly popular in the Netherlands, partly thanks to her.
They are very devoted to each other, and they support each other in what they do. She's not just an accessory to the king. You can feel the intense respect between them.
When Maxima goes on a business trip, the cameras follow. The Dutch people should see that the royal couple is working. After all, they get paid for it. 367,000 euros a year is Maxima's salary, plus expenses.
Her schedule is planned out down to the last minute. And then, when she gets off the plane, because she's the queen, she's under more intense scrutiny than if she were a man. They focus a lot on what she's wearing. Her appearance is kind of her calling card.
Interest is required in all kinds of things.
If you're Maxima or the king, then you are never alone. There are always so many people around, and you're the centre of attention. You always have to be on your guard. You can't go like this in your nose, or there'll be a photo of you like that. You have to be careful.
The royal couple has paid more official visits to Germany than any other country. It's the Netherlands' most important trading partner. The presence of Maxima and Willem-Alexander is a form of royal marketing.
It has an incredible influence. They are normally accompanied by a trade delegation. The king and queen open many important doors, doors which would otherwise remain closed to the Dutch economy and to Dutch culture. Their influence is incredibly valuable.
Maxima's background in economics is useful to her in this regard.
It's more about making new connections and networking than it is about signing deals. But those connections can lead to deals. Sometimes deals are even signed during an official visit. The presence of the royal couple makes it an even bigger event.
The royal couple doesn't travel alone. A lady-in-waiting is always there to ensure everything runs smoothly.
The ladies-in-waiting are there to hold gifts or to hold her coat when it gets warm, or to give her a coat if it's cold. At receptions where Maxima talks to people, the lady-in-waiting keeps an eye on the time and says, "You have to continue and talk to this or that person now."
The tight schedule doesn't allow time for delays.
She is a bit of a perfectionist, and she's always very well prepared. If something goes wrong, not because of her, it's because of someone else. She can get very upset when that happens.
Here to ensure that upsets are kept to a minimum, a lady-in-waiting and a highly decorated army officer. Their task is to look after the Queen. The price of prominence, the constant presence of security. Unperturbed, Maxima does her job. She had to get used to life in the public eye at first. She wasn't born into the role as queen. Maxima grew up in Buenos Aires. Her well-situated Catholic family has Spanish-Italian roots. The parents were not particularly wealthy, but blessed with many children. Maxima, 2 brothers, 1 sister and 2 half-sisters from her father's first marriage. She attended an elite private school. There she soon met the daughters of Argentina's upper class.
She was a person with real integrity. full of love, and always there for anyone who needed her. She was the center of her large circle of friends. Friends she still has after all these years. That says a lot about her.
Maxima studied economics at the renowned Pontifical Catholic University of Argentina in Buenos Aires. Her professor remembers her well.
She attracted attention because she was a very tall and pretty young woman. She was also very interested in economic and social issues. I remember the class that year as being one of the best I ever taught. She was definitely a good student, and I was a very demanding teacher.
In the heart of Buenos Aires, one of the many slums in Argentina, mainly home to poor immigrants from neighboring countries. This is also the reality which Maxima grew up in.
When I was 14 years old, I was brought up in Argentina, and I saw how hyperinflation and sometimes not the best macroeconomic situation brought people into poverty and took away the possibilities to include them economically and build a future for themselves. So from that moment on, I don't know, I decided to study economics, and probably with the ambition of becoming a minister of finance. I'm actually joking, but it was a little bit like that. I wanted to really help people to make a better life for themselves.
Only a few kilometers away from the slums is the bank where she worked as a student.
She always had a very strong social conscience. She was never vain. She never thought of herself as better than others. She never wore designer labels. She wasn't a snob.
After graduating in economics, she set off for the big wide world, to New York. The 25-year-old quickly made friends, but for her the most important thing was her job. She worked as a sales manager for Deutsche Bank, a big move up the career ladder with great prospects. And then a fairy tale prince appeared.
A friend said to her, "Let's go to Seville. I'll introduce you to the Prince of the Netherlands." Maxima thought it was a crazy idea at first, to go to Seville for a weekend to meet a prince. But in the end, off they went, and it was at that party that her friend introduced them.
For the Prince of Orange Nassau, it's certain she's the one. Soon Maxima was being hounded by the press. The Argentinian was a hit with the Crown Prince's parents too. The graduate banker seemed to have a flawless CV. Unlike that of her father, Jorge Sorreguieta was Secretary of State during the military junta of dictator Fidela. In that period, tens of thousands of people disappeared. For the Dutch, a father-in-law like this was a huge problem. Willem Alexander's wedding plans triggered a domestic political crisis. Parliament had to approve the marriage. Some politicians wanted to put the Crown Prince to the vote, love or the throne. To make things worse, Willem Alexander tried to exonerate Maxima's father by quoting from a letter to the editor published in an Argentine newspaper, but it turned out the letter was written by ex-dictator Fidela himself. Shortly afterwards, on the day of their engagement, Willem Alexander and Maxima faced the press.
I was at that press conference. They came in arm, and were all sitting there. The atmosphere was icy cold. Kind of like, go on, explain yourselves.
Then the speech they had prepared.
My father is willing not to attend our wedding, although that makes things difficult for my whole family.
The crucial question: does the Crown Prince regret having quoted a dictator?
I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid, wasn't it?
That was a little stupid. She was very charming and she spoke Dutch. Everyone was amazed. I sat there feeling the atmosphere getting warmer and warmer until all of a sudden it was really hot and everyone was thrilled.
She passed the test. Politicians didn't dare to thwart the couple's plans much longer. Parliament soon gave its long-awaited approval. The wedding could now go ahead.
I met her again in New York before she got married. I thought she was very brave to marry a future king. But I had a good feeling because she has such a strong personality. I was sure that she would put her own stamp on her new life.
On the 2nd of February 2002, Willem-Alexander led Maxima to the altar. A commoner joined the Dutch royal family. After the wedding, the Crown Princess went on tour to get to know the country and its people.
Who are you then?
I'm the Crown Prince's wife.
Maxima?
Yeah, Maxima, yeah.
Yes, Maxima.
You look different in the photos.
Do I really look so different? Well, I'm a little bit pregnant.
She arrived on the 7th of December 2003, the future heir to the throne. Her parents named her Amalia, like one of their famous ancestors. The name comes from here, the first Amalia in the history of the Orange-Nassau family. Braunfels Castle on the Lahn River. A powerful woman from a long time ago.
I don't think it's pure coincidence that the future queen's name is Amalia. I think that there really is a direct connection. Our Amalia had so many positive qualities. It was certainly a good idea to consider naming the next queen after her.
In the turmoil of the 30 Years' War, Amalia of Solms-Braunfels moved to Holland. In 1625, she married Frederick Henry, Prince of Orange, governor of the Netherlands. After his death, she took over his regiment.
Amalia
was a woman who stood her ground in a man's world. That's pretty impressive. And the young Amalia might have to do the same thing today.
Amalia zu Solms-Braunfels employed the most renowned artists of her time. She commissioned magnificent palaces.
Amalia came to the Netherlands and was just as ambitious as Maxima. She shaped the court, commissioned the building of the palace where young Amalia now lives. Amalia of Solms brought splendour to Holland, royal splendour. She's certainly a role model.
For both Maxima's generation and those to come, the Netherlands' lucky run of women on the throne began in the 19th century. Emma was followed by Wilhelmina, Juliana, and Beatrix. Following in Queen Beatrix's wake, Maxima has learned how to do the job.
Königin Beatrix war sicher ein großes Vorbild für
Queen Beatrix was definitely a huge role model for Maxima. Queen Beatrix took Maxima by the hand while she was still queen and gave her some very important advice. And Maxima was very wise to take that advice and was guided by it.
They're thought to have developed a close friendship.
Beatrix saw herself in Maxima. They get along very well, because they share the opinion that the crown should be very visible.
Even though Maxima's education may have prepared her for different things. Since 2009, she has been UN Special Advocate for Financial Inclusion for Development with her own office and team in New York. She regularly meets people like the billionaire Melinda Gates. Her foundation supports Maxima's UN campaign in the fight against poverty.
Poverty reduction is one of the most important goals for many who work in economic and social issues. It's not just charity. It's also a way to achieve a more stable society. And Queen Maxima is very aware of that. I think it's great that she's so committed to this issue. She shows the rulers of the world in an exemplary way just how important the issue of poverty is.
The former banker knows what to do, even in Bangladesh. As a UN Special Advocate, she carries out field research and checks the results of the measures taken. Thanks to modern technology, many people can now transfer money via mobile phone. Mobile phone companies offer microcredits, health insurance and savings accounts. Maxima's efforts are of impact. Half of Bangladesh's population now has access to financial services. 4 years ago, it was only a third.
Actually happened last 4 years. Most of this increase has been because of mobile financial services. And that actually increased the gender gap. We used to have a gender gap, so the difference between men and women that actually had access to financial services was 9%, and now it's 29%. And why is that? Because not all the women actually have phones. I had a lady there who said, I'm getting a stipend, and I said, why are you not getting in your phone? She said, no, I don't have a phone, my husband has a phone. So digital inclusion for women is also extremely important.
Maxima calls upon heads of state to act, demanding their support in the fight against poverty.
She puts a lot of energy into her projects and demands results. Maxima says, I came here 6 months ago and you told me you would do this and that. So let's see what happened. How have you progressed? She always approaches the whole thing from the point of view of the result. For her, concrete measures are what count. She doesn't want empty words. There's no doubt that in recent years, Maxima has been the driving force behind a whole series of programs at the United Nations.
The financial expert is taken seriously by politicians and business leaders. At the Women's Economic Summit, she's a welcome guest. Ideally equipped for the job, she is a strong advocate of economic equality for women worldwide.
Maxima is one of the most professional queens in Europe because she used to have a real professional career. Before she became queen, she was a real cosmopolitan. She speaks Spanish, English and Dutch, and she understands French quite well too.
The Dutch constitution doesn't allow the wife of the king to interfere in politics. But where do politics actually begin?
Maxima is a networker.
Maxima is a natural networker. She always wants to meet as many people as quickly as possible. That's why she always goes to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where all the heads of state meet. Then she doesn't have to travel everywhere. She can go from room to talk to everyone. The annual spring meeting of the United Nations at the World Bank in Washington is also extremely important to her.
At the G20 summit of heads of state and heads of government in Osaka, the Queen appears as a guest speaker. She calls for women's empowerment around the world in education and employment.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an issue that is as important for men as it is for women. And we need you all if we want to really achieve success. I'll count on your leadership, your example, and your determination. Thank you very much.
Haar agenda is heel tight.
She has a very busy schedule. I'm always surprised at how she can arrive in Indonesia, for example, in the morning,
en direct aan de slag
start work straight away, and then take a return flight the next evening. Then she'll arrive in the Netherlands in the morning and immediately head off somewhere else for another duty. It's so fast-paced, quite unbelievable.
Het tempo ligt gigantisch hoog. Dat is echt onvoorstelbaar.
In 2018, a shock. Her sister Inés commits suicide. She was Princess Ariana's godmother. The Queen takes some time off and flies to Buenos Aires. One of her first official appointments after Inés's death takes Maxima to a hospital. The Queen is visibly stricken, but talks to the journalists about the death of her sister.
Mijn kleine, lieve, begaafde
My
zusje
dear little sister
was ook
was
ziek.
sick too.
Ze kon
She
geen
couldn't
vreugde
find
vinden
peace and she
en ze
couldn't
kon niet
recover.
genezen.
Our only
Onze enige
consolation
troost
is that she has
dat ze nu
finally
eindelijk
found peace.
vrede heeft kunnen vinden.
Ze zei, ik ga het van papier voorlezen, maar dat deed ze uiteindelijk niet.
She
Ze las
wanted
het
to
voor
read
uit
out her
haar
statement
hart.
at
Dat was
first,
heel erg
but in the
moedig.
end she didn't.
Ze maakte daarmee ook een
That was
beetje
very brave,
bespreekbaar.
very human.
Later is ze
Later,
nog een
she
keer
visited a
naar,
suicide prevention project.
zelfmoordpreventie geweest. Waar er heel veel
Many
mensen
people in the
Nederland
Netherlands who suffer from depression
lijden aan
were
depressie.
touched by the presence of Queen
Geroerd
Maxima.
door de aanwezigheid van koningin Maxima.
Depression is still a
Omdat
bit of a
dat
taboo,
nog steeds een
but the
beetje
Queen
taboe
has made it a
is,
public issue.
weer opnieuw door koningin Maxima onder de aandacht werd gebracht.
Despite her grief, she continues her duties. Once again, the topic is finance. As honorary chairwoman of the platform Smarter in Money Matters, she encourages children to learn how to do just that.
Voor sommige kinderen is het nog moeilijk om
Some children find it hard to handle money. Do you maybe have some cool tips for
Een
us?
coole tip is, met name, ik hoop dat
One
alle
cool
scholen
tip, and I hope the
echt,
schools will
lessen
do
geven
this
over
too,
geld
is to
en
talk
dat
about
de
money in
mensen
the
echt daarover
classroom.
praten. Er zijn heel veel
Our
websites
website
met allerlei
has a lot of
en daar
information
moet je
you should
gewoon
know.
kennen. En dan moet je weten waar ze
And it's
zijn
also
en welke
good to
ze
talk to
zijn.
your parents
Dus,
about
misschien
it.
praten met je ouders, praten
You should
op
know about
school
the risks
en, even
and that
weten wat
saving
ze
is
met
important.
risico's en
And you
ja,
should think
sparen,
hard
sparen
about
voor
what
een
you
doel.
want to
Het lijkt
spend
mij
your
goed
money
over
on.
nadenken voor wat je geld uit wil geven.
As an ex-banker and mother of 3 daughters, Maxima also wants to set an example when it comes to money matters.
Dat vertelde Maxima dat ze
Maxima said that
afspraken
she's
hebben
made a
over
deal
geld,
with
dus
her
dat ze,
daughters
zeg maar,
about
een soort
money.
lijstje hebben waar,
They have a sort of list of things that they pay for
dingetjes op staan wat we
themselves,
moeten betalen
and another
en wat
list that
Maxima
Maxima and King
koning
Alexander pay.
Alexander moeten betalen, zeg maar.
In the Netherlands too, many households are in debt.
Ihr ist dieser Umgang mit Geld so wichtig, weil sie sagt,
She
indem
believes
man
that
mit den
money
Kindern
management
anfängt,
is
dass
an
sie
important
wissen,
cause
wie
because by
eigentlich
focusing on the children, teaching them how to set up a savings account, what happens with interest and how to invest, you
dass sie
don't
damit
only
nicht nur
reach
die
the
Kinder
children,
erreicht, dass die
you
eben
actually reach the adults
lernen,
too.
mit Geld umzugehen, sondern dann auch die Erwachsenen.
And yet another important lesson, this time with sound and movement. In the Netherlands, schools hardly offer any music tuition. For Maxima, that simply won't do.
Dat heb ik absoluut gemerkt.
She comes from a country where you grow up surrounded by music and dance, a country with a fiery temperament. It's great that she's using her own experiences to pass on her enthusiasm and joy for music to all of the children in the Netherlands.
En plezier te geven in de muziek.
Van muziek maken houdt ze.
She loves music. I know that she loves to sing.
Heel vroeger speelde ze zelf.
She used to play the guitar herself, and now she wants every child in the Netherlands, every primary school pupil in school, to have music lessons.
Muziekles moet krijgen op school.
Because that enriches their lives and encourages creativity.
En dat zorgt voor een bepaalde creativiteit.
Maxima is also honorary chairperson of the foundation More Music in the Classroom. Hear from one of their ads.
Kijk op meermuziekindeklas.nl.
Her own living room is turned into a television studio, all for a good cause.
Bravo!
Well done.
Welkom. Dat is...
Welcome. That's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Vond ik altijd zo moeilijk om
Can
te
you
zeggen.
say that?
Ja, ik ook.
Ken je het ook?
Nee,
No, I can't.
But you can definitely play, and very well too.
En nu in 5
In
jaar
5 years, we have reached about 30 to 35% of all children in the Netherlands. They receive a good quality music class at least once a week between the ages of 4 and 12.
The Orange Fund helps Maxima to support certain projects. Financed from the proceeds of the state lottery, it supports socially disadvantaged groups. The royal couple was named its patrons as a wedding present.
Het is leuk om te vertellen dat ze...
They regularly visit organizations, usually once a month, sometimes more often.
Meegaan om organisaties
They want
te
to get to know the volunteers who are working so hard, and also to hear the stories of those who are receiving that help.
Maar ook met mensen die geholpen worden, om hun verhaal te horen.
There are two very special people visiting us today. Welcome the King and the Queen.
De koning en de koningin.
The monarchy is good at surprises.
Maar zij zijn in staat om...
Both of them managed to create a very relaxed atmosphere, often through just simple gestures, by talking about their journey, for example, asking how people are, or if there's anything they need. That somehow makes people open up and tell them how they feel.
Vertellen hoe het echt is met ze.
Once a year, the Orange Fund organises a volunteer day with the motto, Holland lends a hand. Together, the Crown and the public devote time to special causes.
Königin Maxima und König Willem Alexander
Queen Maxima and King Willem Alexander see themselves as a team. They want to do everything together. They know that they can't do things alone. They both need each other. They each have their own areas of influence, but first and foremost, they are a team. There's no doubt of that, and that's what sustains them.
Also in the Antilles, a Dutch outpost in the Caribbean, where colonial rule turned into partnership many years ago.
The royal couple gives the people there the feeling that they belong. They represent a very important connection.
Die verbinding, die verbindende schakel die zij zijn.
Also at home. According to surveys, 84% of Dutch people think that Maxima is doing a good job.
Die Maxima hat sich da eben,
Maxima is very ambitious, and I mean that in a good way. She needs that ambition to be successful in her role. And she's also very charismatic, which helps her a lot with all of her duties, with absolutely everything she does. She wants it, she can do it, and she gets it done.
And since there's no retirement age for the profession queen, she has time to carry on doing just that.